Hello and welcome to my Exoprimal guide. I wanted to make this because I see a lot of people who seem to not know the full extent of some of the Exosuit's abilities and how to utilize certain things. So I wanted to come in and sort of go through every suit and go through some basic abilities. I have 100 battles logged, so I think I'm more than qualified to talk about this. So first we'll start with Deadeye. So Deadeye, basic rifle skill. Damage fall off is not too bad, but you'll see it does minimal damage. There is a module that can increase this, so the more you shoot, the more damage it will do. As you can see, you can do critical shots, and they do make a big difference. Criticals are pretty low, sort of essence on certain dinosaurs. So the basic dinosaurs, most of them don't have a weak point. So it's just the bigger dinos, usually it's the head. For some dinos it appears to be that sometimes they have a weak point, like when you knock over the Triceratops or the Ankylosaurus, you can shoot them in the belly and it does a lot more damage. His basic moveset, so obviously you've got the rifle, you've got the grenade, which has a bit of an arc on it. There is a module to change this to just a straight shot. I myself prefer the palm strike one, which is his other move. So you can charge this up. I would recommend always charging this up. Just pressing it with one button press, I find it just doesn't really have any desired effect. This really is a get the hell off me move. It knocks a lot of dinos back. There is a module that improves this and makes it do 40% more damage. So that is a massive increase. His dodge ability, I'll be honest, I don't really use it. It is good for those oh god moments, but to be honest with you, much like Roadblock's dodge ability, it is very ineffectual. There's a couple of modules for it. I've never really found the need to sort of mess with them too much. And personally, I'd find you better off using the catapult than that as a dodge. So yeah, so on basic Exo fighters, Deadeye is very good too. His ultimate absolutely shreds enemy players, be they tanks, healers, or even just standard DPS. So I think he's a great all-round Exosuit. Do not sleep on him just because he is the default. He is my personal favourite DPS. Make of that what you will. Right, let's talk about Zephyr. Right, the main problem that people have with Zephyr is they do not acknowledge the fact that yes, he is a melee class, but you should probably stick with your team. This goes for all suits. Do not run off and, you know, leave the objective. You can in certain aspects, but always make sure you're going back for healing. Do not make the healer's life a misery where they're trying to chase you down because you're constantly low life. Zephyr has great mobility. His L1 move, you have 2 charges of it by default. There's even a module to give you 3. It is super effective at just getting away. You can bamboozle enemy players by just teleporting through them or behind them. His basic attack is a 3-hit combo, which you can just mash out. Unfortunately, you can't hold the button. This is something you'll just have to deal with. He does have a perfect combo though. I'm not sure if you need the module on, but you could do 1, 2, pause, and then you wait for the flash. You'll know you've done it if it makes the shing noise at the end of it. But with one of the modules, this basically increases the cooldown, or sorry, decreases the cooldown, should I say. He has a shoulder barge, which is a rival schools reference. If you know, you know. He also has a uppercut, or an upper kick, I guess, which is basically a shuriken. It's great on mobs. You should basically always be using Zephyr's abilities whenever they're up. He is a DPS machine, and a lot of people underutilize him because they run off and get killed. He is incredibly squishy. His life pool is tiny, so always be aware of that. He is very fun. The only thing I would say is his ultimate is a little bit lacking. It basically puts him in a overcharged state where he does extra damage. His cooldowns come back really fast, so he's very good for burst damage. A lot of people don't know with his ult, it will heal him, so it is a great tool if you keep hold of it and you get low life. You pop it, oh, I'm back to full life. Really good at getting out of those sort of situations. He's a very situational exosuit. Too much Warframe. But yeah, I would say he is very situational in terms of what objective you are doing. Do not be afraid to swap off of him. A lot of players don't seem to realise that you can just swap at any time. I would suggest doing it for certain sort of objectives, or especially like the 10-man raids. Zephyr can be very effective against hordes, but I find on solo targets he is very, very dangerously squishy, so it does lead to him dying a lot. Just make sure you've got a good healer on your team. Witchdoctor with Zephyr is insane. You pretty much can't die if you're in a in a healing field, so yeah, definitely consider pairing with him if you've got a team. Right, let's move on to Barrage. So, without the doubt, at this current point in time, with the changes in the patch notes at the moment, Barrage is the strongest DPS in the game. This is purely for his fire damage. His grenade launcher is insane. As you can see on basic Exo fighters, it is a 2-shot kill, and it has blast damage. Direct impact seems to do a little bit more damage, but yeah, I think it might be a free shot, but sometimes it seems to do a little bit more. Yeah, free shot basically. His abilities are as follows. So this one, you'll jump in the air and drop the mines. If you direct impact like a dino with these, they will cluster up, so it is worth trying to aim them. Just remember that there is quite a long sort of period for when you jump in the air and place them, so you might want to lead your shots a bit. The fire is incredibly effective. Fire in this game is super good, and Barrage is one of the very few exosuits that can inflict a status element that does that kind of damage. His dodge is very good too. You can upgrade it so it does actual damage to people when you dodge near them. I think it does it at base as well. I don't think I have the module on, but yeah, so you can actually flip people up. Does a little bit of damage. His R1 is insane. So this is a concussion grenade, which does more damage if you direct impact people. But it comes back so fast that it's worth just using just whenever you have it. I really like this move. It's very enjoyable. And last but not least, his ultimate, which is probably one of my favorite ultimates in the game, just for how it looks. So you fly in the sky and then you detonate. Does massive damage. You can wipe out entire teams with this if you are accurate with it. But yeah, be aware, it does take your health, so only use this if you're at full health, otherwise you could potentially blow your suit up. But you know, that might be cool for style points as well, if you wipe out yourself as well as the team. Right, now moving on to Vigilant. So Vigilant is the sniper frame, but that does by no means does not mean you have to cower in the corner and hide. You can be very aggressive with Vigilant if you want to be. The main thing with her is do not, under any circumstances, shoot without charging. If you shoot without charging, you do barely any damage. I mean, 180 is not bad, but I mean, compared to, you know, the charge shot does an insane amount of damage. Wow, that was... I mean, if you can actually aim, there you go. So 240 on a crit. Very good. There are some modules that really change this up. There's one that can give you like a full extra charge on the actual rifle shot. So I would say Vigilant is very good at single target damage. The power shot is very good for group damage. And the ice grenade is insanely good. The only thing with it is it's very slow at traveling, so if you're going to throw it out, make sure it's into a horde, or you are close enough that you're definitely not going to miss with it, because the stun potential on this is so good, especially on big dinosaurs. You can shoot it, so if you just place it on the ground and dinos come near it, you can shoot it and then it will detonate it and the freeze will occur. You can collat with the normal shots as well as the power shot. It's harder on the moving targets, but enough practice you'll get it. I believe the ice as well sometimes is triggered when they touch it, but obviously, yeah, you got to know that they're going to be there. You can zoom in as well. You can zoom in once, so 3 times. So that is very helpful if you're very far away. She has a jump for her dodge ability. This is super good because you can bamboozle people. So if someone is running at you, you can just jump over their head and just run away. You do not want to be in close proximity to players with her. I would definitely suggest the drill fist for her, just because it's great for countering players. If they get too close to you, you can just pop the drill fist. You can charge that up. I'll go through those in a second. But yeah, Vigilant is definitely, I would say, underrated. You do get her pretty late in the game, so you already have pretty good knowledge of the game by the time you unlock her, or unless you've got the head start pack. But yeah, she's very fun, very underrated, I think. In terms of DPS, single target really good, but crowds as well. This move, it can't be slept on. It is very good for crowds, and the stun potential is very, very good. If you have multiple stunners in your group, definitely consider using Vigilant. Right, we're moving on to the tanks.
I'll be back.
So, Roadblock. Roadblock's an interesting one. He is an incredibly fun exo-frame, so I really like him as a frame. Unfortunately, if you don't have the knowledge, then he's not going to work very well for you. The main thing is his shield. This shield is insane. You can potentially put a module on this to increase its durability by 1,000. This thing can tank big dinos, small dinos, any dinos you like. If you are getting into a horde situation, put the shield up, push the enemies back. He can hold so many enemies at bay, and then you can just smack them. The potential for DPS charge for his ultimate is big when you are blocking, so definitely take advantage of that. He has his shield bash, which will knock the enemy back and do a bit of damage. This is effective when, you know, people are stuck on you or meleeing you. You can just use that to push them back. I would, in terms of using it on dinos, just use it whenever you have it. You want to be very situational with it on big dinos. So especially like Triceratops, you can block its charge. Once you've blocked an attack from a big dino, then use the bash. Because when you use the bash, there is a little period of time where you are vulnerable, so you don't want to get caught out and get hit by a dino attack like that. His dodge is garbage. Don't use it. I mean, you can use it, but it just feels, yeah, rip for this skill. It's not very good. His taunt ability, not a lot of people know, but if you taunt enemy exo fighters, it basically silences them and stops them using their abilities. So if you are going to fight a lot of exo fighters, try and sneak one of these in. Just bear in mind that you have to press R1 to cancel that move, and it does need to charge up to have the effect. So you can do it just quick hand stamp, and then you can press R1 and just cancel it. His ultimate is this storm drive, where he sucks in all the enemies, and you can press R2 and then launch them. If you launch the enemy exofires into a wall, it does bonus damage. For hordes, I would just say, just keep it on and don't launch the hurricane. It really is probably, I would say, situational in using it when you have like a PvP situation, just to get them the hell away from you and slam them into the wall. It does a lot more damage that way. Otherwise, DPS wise, it's not great. But in terms of crowd control, it is one of the best ults in the game. The biggest problem with Roadblock is his DPS. Without the long and short of it, it sucks. He is very reliant on having a good team. As you can see, his melee damage, it's okay, but you know, it takes a long time to beat someone down with this. You can get a module to improve this, but I would never take it over the shield durability. That's what you want. That's his main role. He is essentially, think Reinhardt in Overwatch, but I'd say he's a hell of a lot more fun than Reinhardt. That is sort of my take on Roadblock. I don't think he's the best tank, but I definitely think he's one of the funner tanks. And in this game, I would say fun is king. Right, let's move on to Krieger. Best skin in the game, by the way. Love this king skin. So Krieger, minigun tank. This is one of the funnest exosuits in the game, I would say. He has a basic minigun, takes time to spool up. There is a module where you can basically instantly spool up. It has a heat on it. You can vent the heat. If you vent the heat before it reaches red, it will vent a little bit faster. You can use a reload module and that will go faster. It's not particularly long for the venting, but it is somewhat annoying that you have to constantly do it, but otherwise he would be way too overpowered. His shield is great. If you use it on dinos, smaller dinos, when they come in, it will push them all out. It's pretty durable. You can upgrade it, but it does make the cooldown quite long. He has his sort of get out of jail move or evade move. It will actually push the dinos back and push enemy exofighters back. So you can bamboozle a lot of people with this, because they'll be like charging you, they'll think, oh, you're big and slow, and then you can just sort of like, see ya. So very fun ability on that one. I'm a big fan of that. His L2 move is, so these missiles, a lot of people don't realize this, but these actually stun. So these are great crowd control move. On exo fighters and on big dinos, it will lock on. On the smaller ones, it won't lock on, but you can still launch the missiles. So you can just press it and then just shoot at a crowd. But yeah, these stun lock missiles, so they are very good at building up stun. So if you're playing with a Witchdoctor or a Vigilant, works really well with that, synergizes very well. All the exo fighters are pretty fast as well, so a lot of people think, oh, big tank is going to be quite slow, but when you're running at full speed, this guy's pretty fast. So his ultimate, it's not charging very fast. His ultimate is basically like an AoE sort of nuke zone. So he'll drop artillery, it will just constantly do damage in that space. I would say this move is best effective against hordes. It's not too bad against sort of single targets, but it's not something I would rely on unless you've knocked the dino over, just because they could quite easily run out of it before you get any sort of potential DPS out of it. It takes a long time for the missiles to launch, so that is the only downside. Oh, right, we got the overdrive. I didn't realise those capsules give it to you. Oh, even I'm learning something. So you put that down, it will barrage the entire area. Does okay damage. When it ramps up, it does a lot. But yeah, you can still dodge the attacks, and obviously, if you're a smart exofighter, you can just walk out of it. So just be aware. I don't think it's the best for PvP. I think it's best used on like big hordes of dinos. I don't think it's particularly good ult. I think it's a fun ult, but yeah, I don't think it's the best in the game. Right, Murasame.
Withdrawing from combat.
So Murasame is an interesting one. So he is a tank, but he isn't particularly amazing at drawing aggro. His move here, his main move is the counter, and that's on the R1. You can heavily reduce the cooldown with one of the modules. In terms of this, you need to be attacked with it. If you walk into big hordes and pop this, you will take no damage, and it will build this up. If you build it up all the way, it will buff his sword, and he'll do extra damage, and it's very significant. You want to try and get this as many times as possible. But in terms of be aware that if people are stunning dinos or doing crowd control, so Barrage or Witchdoctor, it'll be very hard for you to be hit by them. So you will see a lot of Murasames like running off and fighting a whole pack by themselves. They can do this to a point, but they need to be very careful, because you are tanky. Obviously you're a tank, but you will find that if you get surrounded, it is quite easily to be chowed down on. So you got to watch out for that. His escape ability is very, very good and very misunderstood, I find. It is a grappling hook, which will make him jump. You can jump off of it as well, and then you can do a fallen attack off of it afterwards. I'll show you that in a second while we wait for that. So his other move, his L2, is an EI stance. Anyone who's played Monster Hunter knows where this is from. In terms of this, I was trying to work out if being in the stance makes a difference or if you can counter it. I think if you hit a dinosaur before they do a move, it might do a little bit more damage, but I honestly just instantly press it and just use it for damage. It does quite a bit of damage. You can upgrade it to do more with the module, so very good for that. Right, I'll show you this. So you can jump and then do the fallen attack. That does a lot of damage. It's a very good move for escaping dinos and things like that. You can aim it high, grapple onto high points. You can get pretty good verticality with Murasame, which not a lot of people know. You see there, I can go really high. So for like big pillars and stuff, you can climb up them. His ultimate is basically a Senketsugen. So it does a lot of damage. I think it does more damage the more you charge it up, but the main thing charging it up does is it increases the range. His ultimate can go through walls. That's always good to know. So if you know there's a dino on the other side of the wall, you can just charge it up and just let it go. So yeah, very fun Exoframe. I would say he was pretty tough to sort of learn. Again, much like Zephyr, I would suggest staying with the team. You have the option to go off a little bit by yourself, but like every exosuit in the game, you do not want to be caught on your own. This game is heavily reliant on teammates. If you don't stick with the team, you're not going to win. If you don't stick on the objective, you will lose. Just through sheer numbers. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, that is my main advice with all of these melee frames is don't go too far, don't stray too far. You're not a one-man army. Your damage may make you feel like it, but as you can see, compared to some of the DPS frames, you do an okay amount of damage, but it's not the massive amounts that you'll get out of a DPS frame. Right, sorry I keep calling them frames, but I'm just going to probably keep calling them frames. Right, onto my favourite sort of classes, and these are the supports. So, Witchdoctor, in my humble opinion, is the best healer in the game. Simply because the amount of healing that you can get out of his healing field is insane. He has an electroshock staff, which does a moderate amount of damage. It stuns after a certain amount of time. All the dinos have a big sort of stun sort of bar that you can't see, but if you do this enough, they will get electrocuted and be locked in place. I believe it's one of the longest stuns in the game. I believe the ice grenade from Vigilant is a little bit longer once that procs, but the stun on Witchdoctor it chains to different dinos, so it's incredibly good for that. The module I have on is the range one. There's another one to increase the sort of the stun build up. I find that the range one is just so much more helpful, especially when you have to deal with sort of the flyers and stuff like that. This will catch the flying dinos and they'll just fall from the sky. He's so good with like a team that will stick by you. You've got this healing field, so I've upgraded this, and obviously you can see the healing is incredibly fast. Obviously all healers can over heal, This is an important mechanic, but just be aware that when you over heal someone, it literally, I think within a couple of seconds, it will start draining. But it's essentially what I would call an overshield, so very helpful in those sort of situations. You have 2 charges of this. You can stack them on top of each other for a bigger effect, but I would suggest sort of spacing them out. It has got quite a long cooldown, so it's 10 seconds for each charge. So not too bad. His evade ability is this, where you can do an extra jump. Just be aware that you'll get a lot more sort of range out of that move, the evade move, if you just let it go and don't jump at the end of it. He does like a cool little trick when he does it at the end. There's also one caveat of this guy where he can actually glide. So not a lot of people know this, but if you tap X again when you're in the air, he will sort of use his hat or helmet or whatever skin you've got at the moment. He will use that. You can also use that off of this. So this is good for, you can stay in the air, kind of protect yourself a little bit. Not as good as Skywave, but still pretty up there in terms of evade abilities. He has a feed ability. So this one will heal allies. So you can use it directly on allies and it'll give them a big heal. But your healing field is generally going to be the better one. As you can see, sustained DPS on most targets. Eventually they will die, so you can't out heal a lot of stuff, but you can still help out a lot. His ultimate, so it's this will over heal everyone, heal everyone around you. This will also give everyone a big defense boost. So you can see the yellow sort of icon saying that they've been boosted. Once that disappears, it's over. But this is so good for when, like, say a whole team is around you, or gonna be around your team. You can pop this, and then you guys can just tank damage. So very good for that. I believe it slows down enemy dinos as well. It's not a massive amount, but it's still helpful. But yeah, it keeps everyone alive, keeps everyone defensive. Very good. Witchdoctor is just great. Also, one other thing about his feed ability that not a lot of people know is if you use his shock baton, we'll just drain this out. So if this is like near the end, you can literally feed on an enemy, you get full charge. So yeah, really cool strategy is if you're stunning dinos all the time, all you have to do is, oh, I'm running low on stun baton, just feed, and then yeah, got it straight back. So really good. His crowd control is insane. Do not sleep on Witchdoctor as a healer. I think he is my personal favourite class in the game. He's so much fun to play. Right, moving on to Skywave. So Skywave is a very interesting exoframe. She can essentially fly. So her L1 ability, this is her like main gimmick. You can press X and you can just drop. She gets 2 charges of that. You can jump and do it to get a little bit more height. You can also press X in the air just to start gliding, and then X to cancel it. You can do this twice. Obviously, as you see it, you can jump before, get a little bit more height, and you can sort of rain down. So this move is her main move. It heals and it damages. It is surprisingly very strong. I do have a module to upgrade its effectiveness. The biggest problem with this move is if you've got people running very fast, it's quite hard to track them. Sometimes you're better off staying on the ground and just using her flight when you need to. So something like this, it's a lot easier than when you're in the air and you're sort of raining down. When people are moving, you have to kind of lead your shots a little bit. It looks like the shots linger, but they really don't. So it is a little bit misleading on that. I kind of wish it made like a little bit of a field for a temporary amount of time. But yeah, you have to kind of directly hit them. I don't think she's the most effective at healing. You have some moves to help with that. So L2 is like a sound wave, which will fully heal most people, and then if they're already at full health, they will basically get overcharged. So it's great if someone is super low health, you just want to burst that out on them, and it will help them out greatly. Where Skywave really shines is her crowd control abilities. So she has a R1 move, which is essentially like a big vortex. It will drag everyone in. It will work on exo fighters. Really great for hordes. It will drag them in and it will debuff them. So the debuff is significant. So you want to be spamming this ability as much as you can. You do extra damage to the enemy. I have a module on to make the cooldown faster, but the effect is greater, and it sort of runs out very quickly. You can essentially just spam it out when you're fighting hordes and things like that. With her, you want to basically be constantly holding fire. Her reload speed is very small, so you basically want to be constantly doing this because you can damage and heal at the same time. It's very nice not having to sort of switch between abilities. Does a lot more damage than sort of like Witchdoctor, so very much better for like DPS and things like that. Her ultimate will debuff the enemy and freeze them in place. With this, the epicenter of the sort of dome is her, so it'll do that effect. They'll be locked in place. Doesn't last very long, but it is incredibly effective, especially against big dinosaurs. When an enemy dominator comes through, I would suggest just not using it on them. You can if you want to, but it seems to last less on dominated dinos, so it just feels like a little bit of a waste. Unless you're really desperate, you can use it for that. But I think with her ultimate, it does come back quick enough. You can sort of like use it a few times in the match. So yeah, I think Skywave is an interesting one. She's definitely not my favourite. I think there are some people who will love her. She definitely fills that sort of mercy support role. If you want to just be away from like the danger, you can essentially stay in the sky forever. She gets her charges back enough that you can stay in the air. One thing I would say, a tip with her, is if there are flying dinosaurs in the air, be careful using your flight ability, because they will basically target you, and they will do a lot of damage to you. Hopefully you've got teammates killing them, but a lot of the time you won't. So just be aware of that. She is strong in the air when there are ground dinos, but when there are air dinos, she is a bit of a disadvantage on that. So like maybe consider going on ground for the bit and just sort of using this as sort of a dodge tool. It's very good for that as well. If you just want to get out of the way, you can just pop that and then just drop again. So yeah, really good sort of just mobility overall. She's fun. She can be frustrating to play. If you have teammates that are running away or not sticking together, it's very hard to keep the heals up, and then you'll get shouted at because you're not healing anyone. But in terms of just fun factor, very fun to just fly in the air and drop down hills and things of that nature. So yeah, very cool frame. Yeah, we're just going to keep rolling them frames. Right, moving on to Nibus. This is one of my other favourites in the game. So, Nibus. She is very quick. She's got rollerblades. She moves pretty quick in just general. Her basic sort of gun move. She has these dual pistols which do a surprising amount of damage. These can be buffed. Her main sort of ability or sort of move, I would say, is her weapon switching. So this switches her guns to green is healing, and the red ones are damage. So her healing ones, by default, these are healing shots. They move a little bit slower. But if you just shoot in the general direction, these will generally like seek out allies. You can get a module for these where the shots will pass through allies. After doing a bit of testing, I find it's better to just use the critical damage module she has, because it is kind of tricky to hit your shots sometimes when people are moving. With this you can just hold down the trigger and then they're probably going to get hit by the shots eventually. Yeah, not as strong as Witchdoctor's or Skywave's heal, but the fact that she can do quite a lot of DPS does make up for this fact. Every time you switch, it will give you 1 mag of empowered ammo, so there's a lot more damage. But yeah, you can see like their critical shots do a hell of a lot. I have the module to increase that, so she is surprisingly very powerful against enemy exos. So that was her R1 move. So her R1 move is a barrage of bullets, so you can do this in DPS or healing. In DPS mode, this does a hell of a lot of damage. It's great for hordes, great for player exos. When you do it with a certain module, this can give you basically buffed bullets as well. If you do it with the healing guns, you can actually heal your allies. It does quite a bit. This is very good if like several people are low on health. But generally, I would say you don't want to waste it on the healing barrage, just because the DPS is so massive. I'd say it's worth using the barrage for just the DPS, but it's up to you. I mean, I'd say if you are in a particular situation where everyone is weak, it's very good for that. Her movement ability is a warp. When you warp, it actually creates a little bit of a heal, which will heal you and any allies you're near. The big special thing about this ability that not a lot of people seem to know is when a ally goes down and the revive pop-up comes up, if you send a warp over to them, if it hits their revive, it will revive them for you. So this is incredibly good just in terms of you can keep pumping it out heals, or you can keep pumping out damage while you're reviving people. I'd say Nibus is great for just keeping the whole team up. You can whack out the warp and sort of keep away from the enemy team if they're killing your enemy or your allies quite fast. Very just versatile. Her ultimate is very similar to Skywave's normal L2 move, where you can basically pop this out. I don't think charging it makes a big difference. I think it maybe increases the range, but I'm not 100% sure of that. Let me have a look. No, I think it's the same range. But yeah, you can hold the charge, but it doesn't seem to affect it too much. But this will do quite a bit of damage. So you see it knocks the enemies back. It does about 100 damage. But the main thing with this is it will heal and damage. So say your team is deep in a fight with the other enemy team, you can pop this, press this, knock everyone back, and heal everyone at the same time. Nibus is very close second to my favourite Exo fighter frames. I honestly think the more I play with her, the more she sort of seems to be my favourite. I think it's just really nice to have a healer that has a very good sort of healing capacity, but also has like the DPS potential as well. Because obviously, someone like Witchdoctor, you've got that big stun, you've got the crowd control with Soundwave, but Nibus is sort of that in between, where it's a mix of healing, a mix of DPS. I'm a big fan of her overall. Right, let's just switch back to Deadeye, and we're going to talk about the rigs.
Here.
So rigs are equipment. We'll start from the beginning. So first one you get is the cannon. You have this by default. Really powerful move. So this basically fires a big giant laser beam. Caveat of this that I will like to tell people: if you jump and do this, it will put you in place, and then you can fire that makes you kind of vulnerable, but it is good to, it bamboozles the enemy team quite a lot. If you jump, and obviously you can keep yourself out of harm's way by doing that. There's a little bit of a charge up to it, but it does quite a bit of damage. I'm a big fan of the cannon, just for anyone that lacks DPS, or if you're going to be fighting a big horde, very good for that. You can fire it into a crowd. It does collapse, does do like a big sort of AoE blast at the end of it. Aid is super good if, say, you're playing a class, a tank or a DPS. You don't want to play healer, you want a difference for once. This is good. If you don't have a healer, you can just whack the aid on. You can fire it on the ground, stand in it, it'll heal you, basically. Allies can stand in it too. Pretty self-explanatory, really. Big tip with this is, say you're going to pick up an ally, you can drop this on their respawn, and then you can stand in it and heal them as you pick them up. This will let you tank through a lot of damage and pick people up quite easily. Even on healers this is great, because you can obviously protect yourself a little bit, do a little bit more healing. But yeah, generally I would use this if you are lacking healers, or if you just want to keep yourself alive a little bit more. Really good on Zephyr, highly suggested for him. Just generally a really good rig, comes back very fast too. Next is the catapult. So this is basically a evade move. I'd say this is very effective on Roadblock, anyone that's got sort of a lack of mobility. Very good on Zephyr too, if you want to get in and out of the fight very quickly. This is the one to go for. It will boost you forward, and it will start you at maximum sprint speed. So even at the start of the game you can use this, and you can go at max sprint speed. So very effective for just getting out of the way. You can do this in multiple directions. So say you're fighting someone head on, you can just sort of use it to back out. So we're fighting, and then just hold back, press it, and then it gets you a little bit of distance. Not massive amount, but I do think it's very helpful for those exo frames that have a bit of a lack of mobility. Next is the shield. This is a good bit of equipment. I think the cooldown on it is very long. It's a bit too long for me to justify sort of picking it above everything else. This is very good if you find that you're in a situation where you are getting sort of sniped, or you find you're a bit too squishy. You can just press triangle, put the shield up. It lasts a good amount of time. It's very effective if there's like a big dino coming towards you. Whack the shield up, it'll protect you somewhat. Better than no protection, eh? Right, next is the shuriken, or the blade as they call it. It's essentially a big giant wind demon shuriken. This has a stunning property. The stun is massive on this. If it hits smaller dinos, it will just instantly stun. If it hits exo fighters, it will as well. It does have like a maximum travel distance, but it is quite far. If you throw it at like sort of you want to throw it at a lot of eye level, so it just keeps traveling. If you throw it into a pack of dinos, it will do so much stun damage. It will get you a lot of points if you are looking to sort of raise your score up quite a bit. On big dinos this is effective as well. But yeah, bear in mind it will just pass through enemies till it hits something. I believe it will just instantly stop if it hits a bigger dinosaur, so just be aware of that. But yeah, I think if you want extra stun, if you want to just keep stunning the enemy, very good for that. The drill fist is, I think, one of the most misunderstood rigs in this game. A lot of people don't realize you can charge it up. And it has a little bit of a travel to it, but you want to be very close if you use this. This is great for healers if you find yourself alone and there are going to be enemy PvPers on you. You can charge this up and insta kill them. Very situational, but in terms of it surprises a lot of people. And I think in terms of just using it in general, big dinos, this does a hell of a lot of damage. If you hit them in their weak point, it will do a lot of crit damage. Just bear in mind that you need to be close to use this. There is a little bit of a travel, but you see it's tiny. It's not worth using at range because you just won't hit anything. Try not to use it on smaller dinos, it just seems to be a waste. I mean, you get it back pretty quick, but in terms of, you want to use this on health bar enemies, essentially. Anyone that has a health bar, the Pachyosaurus is really good for those. Those are the headbutting ones. Triceratops, Carnosaurus, T-Rex. Especially if you knock them down. Use this. Does a hell of a lot of damage. Big DPS boost. Big fan of that rig. The other sort of advice I have for this game is play the objective. I mean, it goes without saying. We've all played Overwatch. We all know people hate being on the payload. Just bear in mind, the payload, I believe, maximum on it is 4 or 3. I'd have to double check that, but I believe it's should be 4 on the payload, and then someone can go off of it, and that's the maximum speed. And then on an actual objective, I believe having all 5 players on like a capture zone is the maximum. Don't run off and do your own thing. You're just not gonna win. If you want to win, stick with the team. That's my main advice with this game. It is tempting to run off on your own, but it's also way more rewarding when you just work as a team and you become this unstoppable unit. This game is a power fantasy, but the power fantasy is being in a team of 5 and just absolutely annihilating dinosaurs. Try not to get swarmed. There is an objective where it will summon a big dinosaur, and then at that one point the dinosaur will start running away. Just bear in mind, it's not as effective as just chasing after the dinosaur. You will get swarmed, you will die, the rest of your teammates will get frustrated. Try and clear out the packs a little bit. That's what I suggest. With the hammer, there is an objective where you have to grab the hammer. Try and let the tank grab the hammer because it does slow you down quite a bit. And in terms of this charges up your rig equipment, and you can slam down, do massive damage. Try and use that whenever it's up. There's no penalty for using it too early. When you fully charge the hammer, you can use it on the objective. You don't need to have a charge of the melee to use it. And in terms of when you do get this objective, prioritize the bigger dinosaurs that spawn in, because that will give you the most percentage progress. So definitely suggested with that one. Use modules. I've fought against people who kill me, and they seem to be quite high level, but they've got no modules on. Modules will help you, even if you put the basic ones on. There's a damage reduction one there that's just really good. There's ones that give you sort of recovery, also very good. In fact, let me leave this and we'll show you. In terms of using the different dinosaurs as well, the dominators, Triceratops, I believe you hold out R2 and you charge. You can spear enemies and fling them off the map. Same with the Carnotaurus. The Carnotaurus has the L2 move, which will send enemies flying. His ultimate will charge as well, and you can send enemies flying. Try and prioritize knocking them off the map if the map allows it. The Triceratops, probably don't try and charge a roadblock. You can, but if the roadblock blocks you, quite vulnerable. I think the Triceratops is quite squishy in comparison to the other dinos. The T-Rex is really good. You can pump out a lot of damage. His ult's quite hard to hit, but if you grab an enemy, you instantly kill them. So I do think that's a really good one. I'm just going to go over some of the basic modules. So you've got your red ones, which are your class specific. These are normally your main damage dealer ones. You've got your blue ones, which are sort of your secondary abilities. These will affect different abilities, and then your gold ones, or your yellow, I don't know, orange, whichever color you want to call that. These are your sort of your movement abilities. I find most of the movement ones just aren't really worth it. There's a couple of frames that they are very good on. Just going to go through some of the basic modules. Haven't used all of them, but I'll tell you about the ones I really like. I find that the regeneration one is pretty good. If you just find a lack of healers, this is good to just whack on your healers, because most of the healers, there's not a big way apart from Witchdoctor to heal yourself. So having that extra sort of recovery speed is good. It's still massively long. That's the only problem with it. I kind of like that it's long, because it means you can't just cower in the corner and get your health back. You kind of have to stay in the fight and get healed. You've got the recovery module, which gives you 50 health back instantly. This again, I think the cooldown on it's quite long, so I find these health ones, they sound good on paper. It's not really super worth it. I think before you get sort of your unlocked ones, these are worth like sort of experimenting with. The impact reduction module, I think this is just a great passive. It's only 5% decrease, but it's the big thing is the knockback. The knockback reduction is quite big, so this is really good. If you get knockback and you use like a movement ability, oftentimes you can save yourself. So definitely worth sort of using that to start with. The reload efficiency module, I find this varies sort of exosuit to exosuit. I think on some characters this is really good. So say like Krieger with his his cooldown on his sort of venting his minigun, I think it's really good for that. I think for someone like Deadeye, for example, his reload speed is so fast anyway, this will help, but not massively. Someone like Barrage, it will be pretty good on, but again, after using it and experimenting with it, I don't find it's a massive difference. So not sure if it's 100% worth it. I think most of the time you'll probably be wanting to use like the specific modules for the frame. The high Zol compression module, this basically reduces your cooldown charge on your ultimate. I find this is very situational on what frame. So it feels like they've customized each sort of charge rate for each ultimate deliberately. I find this makes a very tiny difference. I think it's just worth having on for especially your DPS frames where you want to do big damage. I like using this just in general as like a passive buff. I do think it makes a bit of a difference, but sometimes I'm like, is this doing anything? I don't know if it's slightly bugged or not, but it feels like maybe it might be a bit of a placebo effect. But I do think it's a good passive worth using. I think the durability module is probably one of the next things I will probably unlock and use, especially on tanks. I'm not sure what the level 5 will increase it by, maybe 100, but having more health, always good. System repair module, this is basically affects debuffs. Debuffs are, I'd say sometimes these can occur quite a lot, especially when you're in a PvP situation, but I don't know if this is going to be worth having on all the time. There are some dinosaurs later on in the game which will have fire abilities, or they'll affect you in different ways, so this might be worth using in sort of, I'd say maybe when Savage Gauntlet comes out and there's lots of debuffs coming out, this might be a good one to go for. Crafters module, I'll be honest, I think this is pretty useless. I think the building structures, apart from the platforms and the walls, I think the laser guns just outright suck. They get destroyed instantly by big dinosaurs. They don't seem to do a massive amount to like the basic dinos, so I honestly, I mean, to each his own. If you like crafting the stuff and getting the reacquired back, I presume when you level this up it will always give it back to you when it's destroyed, but me personally, I just don't think this is worth using above anything else. Rig loading module, I think this is really good, especially if you're using something like the drill fist or the healing rig. you could just whack this on and you just basically get your rigs back quicker. Even with the cannon, you get that back quicker. More DPS. DPS is just king in this game. You'd want to be pumping out as much damage as possible. So I think with that one, it is very good on that front. Right, I know that was a bit long-winded. This is going to be a long video, but I wanted to cover maybe stuff people haven't covered. I think this game is very misunderstood. This game is just really fun. I think not a lot of people have given it enough chances. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.